you want to know if a project's going to mint out, the easiest way to tell is to look at the size of the Discord and look at the size of the mint, as well as their Twitter. And you can expect that if they have a Discord that is 3 times the size of the mint supply, then they'll likely mint out. But if it's any less than that, there's a good chance that it won't mint out, even with 2 times. So, it's a really interesting thought, and I would love to kind of explore that more.
Coming at you all the way from Arbitrum, it's the Magic Hour Podcast.
This is Alan.
Dionysus.
And Breaker. Produced by Digital Strategies Guild.
All right, guys, welcome back. We haven't done a news and notes in a while, and I think there's been a lot going on in the Treasure ecosystem, the Magic ecosystem, if you will, and I think we should cover it. I don't normally want to lead in with some bad news first, if you will, but one of the most recent things that happened that's pretty big, in my opinion, was the Seed of Life team came out and said that they are no longer actively supporting this project and have turned over the assets to the users, including the Discord, and it's now called LifeDAO. And so what really is interesting is seeing how all the community members have reacted, because a lot of them have reacted very negatively, with reason, of course. They have talked about how they spent lots of money on this project. When you think about the trajectory of Magic and Treasure and all the different things that have gone on, it's very easy to see that reaction, right? Because, we peaked in January and February, and we've just been riding this downhill slope and I'm talking about the Magic price, really, for the last 4 months or so, which has been, fun for us. I mean, we've been doing this pod, right? But for most people, they got into Seed of Life hoping it was going to be something big, because people like Jumpman and End were hyping it up. And I feel really bad for End, too. He was a big proponent of Seed of Life, and I don't think it was his choice to move in this direction, but it feels like we were all promised something, and then when the team didn't deliver on that, they decided to sunset it, which is okay too, right? What do you guys think about how they handle this situation? What are your feelings if you want to put yourself in the mind of a Seed of Life holder? How would you have reacted to this type of situation?
Yeah, I can answer first. And I want to be charitable to the Treasure team. And did we mention why they're doing this? Or at least can I give a quick reason that at least I think why they're doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they released a Medium article, and one of the common themes in that is it's really a resource allocation issue for them as they're kind of building their company. I think this is kind of a symptom of something that we've known for a while with Treasure, is that they grew too big too fast. And as we had a lot of upward price momentum and community engagement that has since waned in the last couple of months, this is something that I think might have been needed to be done a little bit earlier. And so cutting it at this point is especially hard and especially hurtful for all of those Seed of Life holders. If I was a holder who bought in anywhere close to the top, or even if I didn't, I would be pretty upset right now. I feel pretty hurt. My investment, that one of these things that was going to be on-chain wow. I remember hearing that a lot back in January. Something that I would be extremely excited about. It just feels like it's left to the wayside. And it's unfortunate, but I do think for the vital success, the existential success of Treasure, it is something that needs to be done. The resources do need to be allocated to doing what Treasure does best, and that's creating core infrastructure that then builders and people who are driven community members can come and build on top of. So it's another hard pill to swallow, and I feel like there's more to come with Treasure. they grew too big too fast, and some things that we thought we might be able to sustain can no longer sustain.
I have to agree with you in terms of the fact that they might have decided that their resources could definitely be put in a better spot elsewhere, considering that there are already a lot of projects in the space that are trying to do similar type of play to earn models that to what Seed of Life is doing. And so why are they going to try and compete with someone who's dedicated to be building this when they have teams kind of working on these different things? And I think to your point, Dion, and maybe Alan, you can kind of confirm this as well. It feels like to me that their focus and what they are prioritizing right now, more than anything else, is small brains. I feel like that universe is unique, has a lot of goodwill and enthusiasm behind it, and it just seems like it's the natural project for them to turn their focus to.
And you're completely right on that as well. I 100% agree with you on that because, I mean, in the end, that was a project that brought the fire. It's a project that most people are in. It like has a collection size of, I believe, 13,000. A lot of people are a part of it. It's what created Treasure in the first place. And as you were saying as well, Dion, you're completely right. Treasure grew extremely fast, and it's not just like a typical like L1 project on the main network that's just a typical NFT project with just PFPs. It's creating a whole ecosystem, creating a whole generative community. Again, the whole motto was to become the next Nintendo of the metaverse. And that is not a small thing to do, for sure. And that too on Arbitrum, and Arbitrum is also still so new, so learning to adapt to that is also a whole other big cliff that they have to solve as well. And I agree. Again, it is definitely a bitter pill to swallow. I did have Seed of Life myself. And
same. I have a Seed of Life.
Yeah. And as much as it hurts, when I even feel bad for the people, who bought at the top, again, you're saying it's a big, big investment, and especially at the time, it definitely was not cheap. And it does suck. It really does suck seeing that your investments just get taken away like that. Again, it just goes back to the perspective of how you want to think of this. And realistically, if you love Treasure, if you're thinking about it in the long-term perspective, I believe it is a good decision. I think it was the right thing to do. And if it was needed to help survive and help betterment the ecosystem and just the whole flow work of Treasure, then so will be. That's what's needed to be needed to be done. Again, we're a whole community. We just have to learn to, I guess, just move on from it, as much as difficult as it may be. But I feel like, again, the community's been strong before during dark times, and I feel like they're going to be strong now. And I feel like everyone else also does understand to some extent of the things that are needing to be done for the reasons that it is. But do we know if there is going to be any reimbursement or any type of, I guess, like any types of gives backs or anything like that to the community for Seed of Life?
So that's a great question. From what I understand, you're going to obviously get your treasures back if you staked any treasures. And if you put up any balancer crystals, I believe those are going to be returned to you as well. That's as far as I know. But you brought up something just before that, which is there's a lot to be excited about in Treasure. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit because there really is. Obviously, it sucks that this project had to go this way, and I feel bad for, like you said, those people who invested in it. I got mine for free, so I don't feel as bad. I imagine you feel the same way because I think you got yours for free as well. But we are in what most would call the wild, wild west of crypto right now. Anything can happen. Nothing is guaranteed. So, if you're coming here and if you're participating in this space thinking that you're owed something by people who are building because you decided to spend money on it, this might not be the space for you. But
yeah, just to end on a positive note too, what the team is doing is they're focusing their resources to have like 5 to 10 more, or even more than that, life projects come into play in the future. Maybe this one isn't, but for the ecosystem, like this is a great thing. Treasure's focusing on what they're passing to the shooters.
Yeah, you know what? And I love that you bring that up because let's talk about the ecosystem and how things are going, because that is something that has really kind of turned a corner recently. I know that the market itself has seen some activity in terms of the magic price. And let me bring up the price as it is right now. I should have had this up earlier. But right now it's at 51 cents. It's up 7.5% today. Over the last week or so, we've seen a couple of nice bumps. And it was, as of this morning, 47 cents. And it went all the way up to 54 cents. And now it's kind of hovering around 51. But over the last 7 days, we've seen a nice climb from where it was. Still not where we saw it once before, but back at 26th of May, it was at 38 cents, and that looks like the local bottom right now. So almost 20 cents higher than it was a couple weeks ago. So I think that's a good sign. You don't see that a lot with these tokens. I think most tokens in crypto that I've seen just have that downhill slope and don't come back up, right?
You're absolutely right. Like this isn't alt you see on Coinbase or on FTX or anything like that. So seeing this get breathed life into with macros also kind of seeing a revitalization is a really great sign for the future. And I think also just lets you know that the community is still there, that there's still investors willing to risk capital and be exposed to magic. And I do think that is a positive sign for whenever we do come out of this bear market, that magic will still be around and we'll have some great rallies.
Not buying smalls over the past couple weeks because they were down, but it seems like they're popping back up. They were at 1,500 on the 23rd of April. They were at 1,600 on the 11th of May. This person who does the Small Street Journal hasn't posted in a while. But where are we at now with small brains? I think they're at like 2,500 again.
I'm checking that right now. Yep, 2,500 is the floor, which is a really impressive pump. And I'm not entirely sure why. If there's any fundamental case for why this pump in small brains, other than, obviously the community is still strong. Looking at these stats, around 60% of small brains are staked and 93% of small bodies are staked, according to Smolverse.
Well, I have a theory there, Dion, and I think that there are a number of savvy investors who understand that Trove Marketplace is launching soon, and they're going to try and ride this momentum into Trove and see where it takes them. Now, I will also say that small brains seem to have been making a lot of announcements lately. They're kind of they're demonstrating a lot of future activity. The move away from Seed of Life, we all agreed would allow them to focus more on smalls, which is something that, like we said, is a popular project in this ecosystem. So it would only make sense that that's where people would be going. So I think that probably has something to do with the pump.
True. And actually, another thing that you said reminded me of this. I'm not entirely sure why. I've seen this rumor, and I'm going to give a disclaimer. I don't believe this rumor, but I've seen it around that some people are hypothesizing that owning a Small Brains NFT might be a factor into a future Arbitrum airdrop.
Well,
which
along
is
the lines of that, yeah, it's with some sort of advantage to that, and the reason why is because the founders of whatever the Arbitrum airdrop, as you're talking about, they actually have Small Brains PFPs as well, and there's actually a few other things that I'll also talk about on why I think Small Brains pumped, but yeah, continue with what you were saying.
No, I'm not a personal believer in that rumor. I'm a little suspect that Arbitrum as a entity would favor Small Brains in such a fashion like that, but it would be really cool.
No, I agree as well. I don't think that's something that they would do, but at the same time, I do see why they would do that as well, because Treasure does make the core component of, again, what majority of sales and majority of the activity is on Arbitrum itself. And I could see why they would do something like that, but at the same time, I just don't feel like that's something that would be good for the whole ecosystem itself. But again, there might be reasons why they might be doing something like that, but well, we just have to find out, I guess. But another also things as well is small quests came out, and as far as I believe, there isn't any utility that's been provided to that just yet, in terms of just you have to at the seventh day or the seventh type of phase of your small quest, as you continue to feed it, there's going to be some sort of reward at the end of that. I don't think they've actually revealed what the reward is, but you have to pay 50 moon rocks for you to be able to process that. So I guess there's going to be some sort of dilution into going into that. And on top of that, there's also some alpha leak that Treasure Times posted on June 3rd that in the future, there's going to be some L1 onboarding event with blue chips. So you'll be able to wrap your blue chips and turn them into a small. So that's pretty cool as well. That's definitely going to be, I guess, a cool thing that we might see if, again, the hype continues to build up with Treasure as well. And yeah, and also Trove is coming out as well. Small Quest has been pumping up. And I feel like the main catalyst was because of the fact of Arbitrum drop and all of that stuff coming out within the next week or so. I think there's something going on with Arbitrum on the June 14th, as far as I believe, or 13th.
Yeah, I think there's some sort of Arbitrum week coming up.
Yeah.
Now, let me see what the name of that really is, the official name. But I still want to mention that there has not been a confirmed Arbitrum token drop yet.
No.
Correct. At this point, it's all theories and copium.
Right. One of the things that I noticed too, like we were talking about the building, is that a lot of people are talking about Realm recently. Realm is building a lot. You know, we had Arcane on last week, which they seem to be releasing their new project. I think there's just a lot going on, and I think that that's really good for the ecosystem and just in general. I think that it's really kind of bringing all this activity back to this network. And I think, you know, I don't know, we've probably talked about this before, but in my opinion, network activity, volume of transactions is very reflective of how active the ecosystem is. And you want people to be continually using the Arbitrum ecosystem. And I think that that's also bringing people back too, because they're starting to see more transactions take place here than on other chains. I know that, and we'll get into this later, but there are some projects coming to Arbitrum that already exist on other L1s that are no longer kind of. But Alum, you brought up Trove, and I'm happy you brought up Trove because Trove is launching soon. And if you're listening to this, you probably have already listened to the Trove by Treasure showcase that they've been holding a bunch of these on Twitter, these Twitter Spaces, and we moderated one of them, and we'll get into that and the projects in a little bit. But Trove has been recently making some announcements about a lot of the features that they are going to launch with. And so, just for those who haven't been up on what's going on, basically Trove by Treasure is going to, for lack of a better word, cannibalize the Treasure Marketplace. So everything that you know about the Treasure Marketplace is now going to become Trove. And you might be like, well, wait a minute. I thought Treasure Marketplace was going to be Magic-based and Trove was going to be, Ethereum-based, but you could trade different assets. Yes, that was, I guess, the original vision, but, as we just discussed, things change. People, teams kind of re-envision what's going on. And what they've determined is it makes more sense, and I would agree with this, I'm sure you guys would as well, that one marketplace is better than two marketplaces.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great to have a marketplace that accepts ETH as payment. And I'll tell you why. Not only are we going to be able to kind of we're going to be able to onboard a significant amount more of users very easily by using ETH and not having to switch over to the Magic token. It's also going to allow the Treasure team to collect fees in Ethereum to help it further increase our war chest without just adding additional sell-side pressure to the Magic token. which is honestly fantastic. We all know the Treasure team has a very big war chest and they will be able to survive the bear market, but adding ETH onto the Trove Marketplace will allow them to grow their team even more than expected. And I think that's really great.
And it's also better for onboarding as well. I feel like right before they get into Magic, I feel like that's going to be a good bridging system to kind of give people who are first and foremost getting onto Arbitrum, so layer 2, and then again just not overloading all these new people as well. So they get to see Trove, they get to see how it operates. In my opinion, we saw teasers on Twitter as well. I love the UI. I love how it's being shown. I love the mechanics and everything as well. And I think it looks absolutely great. And I feel like it's definitely going to be a good welcoming to just people who are coming into the new Magic ecosystem as well.
Yeah, I think so too. And we didn't even get to this yet, but Trove is also announced, and they have been on their Twitter, a whole slew of features that they're adding to the marketplace. And, I think we can all thank, and I don't know if you guys have used Gem before. I would think that you have, because we hang in the one Discord, but Trove has adopted some of the features that Gem has brought to the NFT ecosystem, such as bulk buying or sweeping, if you will, NFTs. They're going to have market analytics for each of these different NFT projects. They're going to list all the NFTs, any tokens that are associated with them. I think there's just going to be a whole lot of features that are going to be incorporated. I don't know if you listeners are out there are familiar with Jumpman, who we referenced earlier, has been the driving force behind Trove by Treasure. He actually left Seed of Life to focus on Trove by Treasure. Jumpman runs a private Discord called Origins, which produces these amazing NFT analytics. And so I would imagine that with that type of skill, I hope that he's brought some of these features of his Origins Discord to the Trove Marketplace. I hope. Obviously, he has a private paid Discord that means something, and he's probably not going to give up all of the features that he would want people to pay for. But if some of those come to Trove, I think that's a huge win, and I think that there's going to be a lot of excitement around this. In the past couple episodes, we've talked about how much people are building in this ecosystem. And maybe I'm sheltered, but I don't hear about all the building that's going on in Polygon. I don't hear about all the building that's going on Avalanche. I hear about a lot of stuff that's going on in Solana. Definitely, Solana is a place where people are building and selling NFTs, and there's a lot of activity there. But when I look at the lists on the different whitelist spreadsheets that I see pass around, there are at least 20 or 30 different projects that are building in this ecosystem. And we're going to talk about some of them in a second, but it's pretty impressive. And if you think about it, right? If you think about the fact that we have 20 or 30 different projects, all those projects have their own teams. That's a lot of people focusing in this one ecosystem. I think that there's something there. I think most people would recognize that as, hey, there's something going on here. Let's not just kind of pass this off as another token that may be down bad 6 months from now. No, I think there's a lot of really good stuff going on, and I'm really excited for the next couple of months to see where this goes.
And not to hate on any other altcoins, any other projects that are working in other spaces, but as we talked about earlier in the episode as well, that Magic is still the one that's standing. And as much as a lot of them got wrecked and a lot of them have taken a toll, and Magic has as well, we still see that it's still trying to sustain its floor. We still try to see it picking itself back up and just trying to pick the pieces back up as well. And I feel like for a lot of the altcoins that have died down during this time or have just kind of exited, I feel like all of these people from those spaces are just looking for the next thing to grab, or looking for a next thing to kind of just look for that really holds value and utility and can actually be something in the future. Not only on L2 or any of these other networks, but also on L1. In my personal opinion, I just feel like L1 is just kind of just fading in the fog right now. There's not really too much utility and not really any actual quality worth of projects, just in my personal opinion, that are kind of surfacing as of the moment. And I feel like sooner or later we're going to see the the limelight being pushed onto just really quality forward projects as well, which, in my opinion, is just treasure in Magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we'll see a lot with NFT NYC coming up. By the time this episode is released, I think NFT NYC will be about a week away. So I think we'll start to see a lot of flurry of things going on. And beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, by the time you're listening to this, we would have already hosted this Twitter space called the Trove Showcase. And the one that we're hosting is featuring 3 projects, and we're going to get into it in a second. Those 3 projects are Pills Game, Flip Project, and Smolizards. And we're going to talk about those 3 here as well. Granted, we're not going to have all the information because obviously some of that information is going to come from this Twitter space, but we can certainly talk about what we know firsthand from just the research that we've done. And I think let's start with Pills Project first, which I believe is minting on the 13th of June. Is that correct?
I believe Pills is minting on the 15th.
Yes, that is correct. Pills launches on the 15th. Flip Project launches on the 13th. So if you're listening to this, Flip Project might even be minting. And Smolizards also launches on the 15th. So the 15th is a big day for minting. But let's dive into...
Just to correct that, so Flip is minting on the 13th, correct? And I just had a quick question. How do you guys think that's going to roll? Especially because that is Trove launch date as well. How do you guys think that's going to end up turning out, having a whole marketplace being launched with projects on it on the same day as well?
Well, here's what I'll say to that, Alan. They better be locked. Their contracts better be locked up tight, and everything better be working. I hope they've been beta testing it, because if things launch on the 15th and people can't trade them, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges. And of course, they'll be able to trade them on Tofu and stuff like that. But this Trove Marketplace is a really big deal. And you know what? I think with everything riding behind it, I think that they've probably spent far more time than they've expected to in making sure that this happens. But
definitely, I agree as well. And I mean, a quick example of that as well is, all these Bridgeworld updates, they've been so much faster, a lot more efficient with them as well, making sure that they're not bumping into other problems that might be caused from one as well. So they've been getting very, very good and very quick and efficient with just making patchwork updates, cleaning up things, fixing bugs and updates and stuff like that as well. So I guess we really can say that they really are becoming more of a finer and more dedicated team, and just I guess you can say a lot cleaner in how they work. And let's just see if that all goes into work on launch date for Trove.
For sure. All right, let's dive into these projects a little bit, kind of give a brief overview, if you will, and we'll kind of try and chat about them. The first one up is Pills, and so if you go to pills.game, that's their website. Of course, these links will be in the notes. But when you go to the website, you have this nice big graphic. The graphics look pretty cool, very interesting characters, if you will. And the first thing you see is chain space is dying. I don't even know what that means. But if you scroll down a little bit, it says Pills transforms Ethereum into an on-chain RPG set in a fictional universe called Chain Space. An interoperable and composable game universe existing on-chain, blending together interactive gameplay and community storytelling. In Pills, the players create and shape the game world. The Pills universe is powered by Synth, a Solidity game engine that enables composability and interoperability. Anyone can create interconnected games and narrative experiences that influence and evolve your playable Pills, avatar, and the Chain Space universe at large. All right, so my first takeaway from this is that they are creating this world that other users are going to be able to come in, not just with their Pills, but just come in and be able to create experiences within this world. And I feel like this is something we've heard from a lot of different projects, usually on L1. But what do you guys think so far about this premise? What's your first take?
My first take is, I think this is by far the most ambitious of the projects that we're talking about today, of the 3. I think that both, not to go too far down the line of like customization and what their roadmap is, I think that inherently relying on community to be narrative creators and inherently latch onto the game to create like media or some sort of like additional programs or add-ons to the game that the core team is working on is a moderate to large assumption that your community will latch on and start creating at that capacity or at a scale that would essentially connect well into the game. So my first takeaway, I guess, in summation, is this is ambitious and it has a lot of potential, but
hey, a lot of these projects have potential, and I agree with you. I think it is ambitious and there's a lot of potential, but I also agree with the fact that relying on your community to create memorable experiences is a big ask.
And again, I also agree with that as well. I think it is definitely a big jump. As Breaker said, we've seen L1 projects try to attempt this before. Don't think any of them have really worked out to make them too successful just yet. But based off of just what we read there, my biggest question is how the game engine is going to work. Synth. That's my big question, and how well they've developed that. And just in terms of the graphical concept and just how the animations and just VFXs are going to work with the characters as well. That's my big question. Just apart from gameplay, utility-wise and stuff like that, in terms of creating an interactive and cohesive gameplay network, I feel like this is going to be a really big challenge, especially doing it just based off of, I guess, just Arbitrum and what we have to use right now. And judging by the art that can see on the website, it looks, again, as you said, interesting. It's definitely not too bad, but at the same time, can they connect that to the game engine and the sourcing that they're going to be using? That, I think, is going to be very challenging. And if that's something that they can tackle down, and if that's something that they can work on, then, I mean, hats off to them, because that is definitely no easy fix. But that's my biggest question right now, is how is Synth going to work, and how is that game engine going to be cohesively working with another project as well, but at the same time theirs, and how the whole connectivity aspect is going to be working within them. So that's kind of my question on that.
Definitely valid questions, Alan, and I think you're right on the money there. How is this game engine going to work? Next thing I wanted to bring up about Pills, though, is something that stands out to me, and I know, Dion, you and I were talking about this briefly before. Pills is minting 12,000 of these Pioneer avatars to start out with on the 15th, and the mint price is 0.1 ETH, which is kind of on the high side, if you ask me. I think that's a little much. Granted, Ethereum's down right now. I understand that, but at the same time, 0.1 is a lot for people to be minting. And here's the other thing too: in the Discord, there are only 3,000 members in the Discord, and on their Twitter, they only have 6,000 followers. So combine those two, you have about 9,000 people interested in this project. Now, I'm not going to say some of them are bots. I don't know. I can't confirm any of that. Or if there are multiple accounts with the same user. But my point is that you have 12,000 mints, only 9,000 combined followers between Twitter and Discord. I don't know if this project is going to mint out, and then couple that with the 0.1 ETH price point. It doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of traction there to get started with. But who knows?
That's a really good observation. And I think that's actually a pretty good segue, though. So the high price point, I think, is justified for their pretty robust and roadmap and what they plan on delivering to users. The second item on their roadmap is a downloadable 3D game demo. And that is something that I assume all Pill NFT owners will be able to download, play, test, provide feedback into. And again, going back to my initial take that this is ambitious, to be fair to the Pill team, they have put together a very robust current narrative and created a pretty robust, I guess, like they've done a great job world building so far. If they are able to raise the funds, I'm very interested in what they're going to be able to produce.
That is true. If they do raise the funds, what, 12,000 times 0.1 is what, 1,200 ETH?
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Right. That is a lot of money. So they definitely could potentially have something big on their hands. And they have a pretty big team too. They have at least 20 people from what I can see on their website. So it's not like they're just one developer kind of building this stuff. And you're right, there is a lot of art. There's a lot of world building going on. So they might certainly have something on their hands. But again, what I was saying before, it doesn't feel like they have the following to warrant a large mint collection. Now, that might change after this Twitter space. Who knows? Because the Twitter space on the 8th of June, that gives a week before it mints out. So, we'll see these things. But I think that that's definitely something that will get discussed for sure.
And one other thing I also just pointed out here. So I'm reading later on in the website as well. It says, what is Pills and how do I play? I just took a quick glance at this, and it says an interoperable and composable sandbox universe. So that's one thing that already stuck to my head. Existing on-chain, and then also storytelling with RPG progression. And RPG is big. It requires a lot for an RPG game. And, okay, I get they're doing, the entire sandbox universe, but in terms of the timeline, in my opinion, I just think this is going to take a long time for an actual full-on working gameplay mechanic to actually exist. And I see here that is currently working on the team dictates that is currently working on a 3D crafting miniverse to release in Season 2. So I guess they already have a timeline working along the lines of that. But again, just my questions really come down to how the game engine is going to work. How are you going to make that cohesive with RPG progression? Because that, again, is a very, very big thing and complicated thing to create. And that's you having a sandbox universe. Because a sandbox universe is basically just allowing yourself to do whatever you'd like within that type of universe that you end up existing to play on. And I'm just kind of wondering in terms of how realistically long would it take to get that type of gameplay of being able to do what you want. And again, if they execute this, then this is pretty big in my opinion. It would be a very, very big step, but it's just hard to say because we haven't really seen many projects be successful at this just yet.
For sure. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. I'm really intrigued. I think that there's a lot of potential there, but like Dion said originally, very ambitious. Are you guys going to mint this project?
I will most likely not, even though I have to say, I really like this art. I think it's cool. I think it's wacky. I think it's creative. I even played around with the pioneers, which are essentially the playable characters, and customized one. They have one that's obviously a frog and named after Pepe. I don't know. They have a lot of customization. You can get several different origin stories, have different places for upbringing, different talents, and additional customizable gear, and eventually you can get a 3D model of it as you enter into this 3D game that they're producing through Synth. I don't know. It looks very cool, and I get excited looking at it, but I would rather FOMO into this after the mint than be an OG.
I agree. I don't think it's going to mint out right away, and I think there'll be an opportunity to get in maybe at a cheaper price when Trove launches.
For sure. But I also do feel that if, again, the way that I'm envisioning it, if it were to play out that way, they execute it perfectly, I see this thing getting swept up very, very quickly. Very, very quickly if they are able to do the things that are being claimed on the website. Just in my personal opinion.
Next up, we have Flip Project, and I'm really excited to talk about this one because I think that this one has a very unique premise, and it's going to involve, I guess, some level of game theory, which, gets me excited. I don't know. I think when there are games that require you to kind of think about how you intend to either hold or trade the asset, I think that it really will create some sort of unique experience because you don't know what anyone else is going to do or how they're going to interact as well. And I think that that provides some level of excitement. But to kind of segue into what this project is, I'm going to read their manifesto from their white paper, which is on their Medium. They don't have a website, I don't think. But here's what their manifesto is. The Flip Project is a conceptual art experiment that is initiated as an institutional critique regarding the perception of value in the Web3 space, as it aims to stimulate a collective consciousness by introducing unique performance art tools and allowing the community to participate in this process. The NFT owners are given public access to these tools, the formula and the calculator, both of which are part of the art process. These tools neither express any certainty or suggest any sort of actions regarding the valuation of the item in the collection. Therefore, it is up to the community to decide the fate of the project. Personal interpretation of the performance art tools, perception of value, and individual decisions by each Flip NFT holder will collectively shape the direction and the outcome of this art experiment. Wow. First off, this one is just, it's another one of these we're going to rely on the community to drive our interaction. And as we just described with pills, it's not something we're in favor of because you never know what the community is going to go with, right? And I think that also too, right? You have to build that community. That community has to be strong as hell to really kind of get involved with this and make it an active ecosystem. Would you not agree?
I would agree wholeheartedly. You need the strongest community to do that, and knowing, I guess, what type of community that you have beforehand is, in my opinion, near impossible.
I also agree. I feel like that just requires an insane amount of trust and just an insane amount of commitment towards it. And I just don't really think that, just in general, the NFT space has that or would get to that point as of right now, honestly.
Alum, you're right on the money, man. I don't think that there's enough people in this yet. We haven't hit critical mass, I think. I mean, and I could be completely wrong, but I don't think we've hit critical mass to the point where these communities are just going to blossom on their own. That being said, let's give Flip the benefit of the doubt, and we'll keep talking about it because I think that there's some very interesting parallels to that manifesto and what they're trying to achieve. So, first off, I don't know about you guys, but the manifesto felt very abstract. Like I didn't really understand what they were describing, and I say that as a parallel because if you read their quick intro, which follows this manifesto, it says each NFT in this collection is called a flip. Every flip has an hourly numerical formula value increase. I don't even know what that means, which is calculated by the formula engraved on it. So it sounds like these NFTs are going to have a formula on them. Side note, I like math, but I'm not like huge into math, but I'm going to suspend, my concerns for the moment. And then starting with the very first mint from the collection, the numerical formula value increase period lasts 100 days. So just bear with me for a second. When you mint this NFT, the value of the NFT based on the formula that's on the NFT will increase over 100 days. Now, I don't know how they program that. I imagine that they're setting it based on block times. I would have to imagine. But the mechanism that's going to show this NFT increasing in value is going to be very interesting. And I wonder if some NFTs right off the bat are going to be worth more than others just based on their formulas alone. But we're not done yet. After this period ends, the clock stops ticking, the formula stops functioning, and value shows abstract. Now, that's why I thought it was funny because their manifesto is very abstract, and that's the end result of this 100-day NFT simulation, if you will. Now, before we get into some other mechanisms that could impact this, how do you guys feel about after 100 days, the NFT no longer has this formula? And it doesn't sound like it's reversible either, because after this period ends, the clock stops ticking, the formula stops functioning, value shows abstract, and all Flip NFTs become artworks. Quote-unquote artworks.
I think conceptually what they're trying to do is really interesting, especially in this ecosystem. So thinking about Treasure as a whole, one of the core tenets is this free mint that people have historically gone to for immediate flipping, right? And so by building in this additional, essentially, incentive into the NFT to hold it for what I would argue is quite a long time in this space is really interesting and cool. So from an art perspective, from like a performance art perspective, if you will, that gets me excited. And then from a kind of like game theory-esque, like investing side, it is really interesting to see if one of those, and we've talked about this before, Breaker and Alan, will there be essentially more value in those NFTs that were traded and could be like rolled into a new and cooler generative art piece, like rarer or something like that. So right. I think there's also like an investing portion as well, or game theory.
Yes.
That will be interesting to see.
And I agree with you there. I think that there's unknowns here. And I think that's what excites me about this. We don't know what's going to be interesting to the holders or how people are going to interact with this type of time-based activity, so to speak. And I kind of like that. Now, there are a couple of interesting features of this project that we haven't talked about yet, but are part of kind of the game, if you will. So basically, I want to know, and these are answers that I don't have yet. Excuse me. The formula keeps going for 100 days. We understand that. If you trade the NFT, the formula stops. Now, what happens if you trade the NFT? Does the formula start from zero again? Does it continue for the new user? Like, how does that work? And if you keep flipping the NFT, will it keep resetting the timer?
Yeah, that's a really good clarifying question. I understood it as resetting the timer, but it could be interpreted that flip NFT becomes possibly valueless and it won't ever evolve into that other NFT. Is that a possibility?
I mean, that certainly is a possibility because it says at the end of the 100 days community-run art experiment period, the holders will be rewarded with an abstract NFT airdrop. Huh. So if you're holding it for 100 days, you're going to get the airdrop. If you buy it, then do you not get the airdrop?
Interesting. I would want to say yes, but I obviously I don't know enough.
Right. It's all very abstract, right?
Yeah, but I like it. I think it's a cool concept, and on the spectrum of NFTs that I would buy because I like the art or like want to make money, this is probably on it closer to I like the art.
Yeah, and touching up on the thing you just said about, again, will it ever get to the point of getting to the abstract generative piece? Coming into just the perspective of how NFTs are now and the whole, I guess, majority of the reason why people are in it in the first place is to make money. And I feel like in my opinion, I just don't think it would get to that point. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here because if I was an investor or if I was holding one of these pieces, and again, as much as it seems interesting, and don't get me wrong, I think it's pretty cool as well. But at the same time, if I'm holding this and then coming from that perspective, if I just know nothing of what the piece would be and being turned into as like this whole generative piece from what I'm understanding, and maybe potentially even losing all its value, I just don't really know if that's something that I want having, if even it gets to the point where it is a high value item. And I just don't even know how, again, it's all really foggy, and I just don't know how that would generally work and if people would prospectively even like that. But I guess there's just more to be unfolded on how it's going to work and stuff like that.
I agree with you, Alan. I don't know how it's going to play out either. And so we haven't gotten into the collection size and the mint price yet, and I want to talk about that too because I think that has some bearing there. This mint is, like we said, on the 13th of June, and they're minting 9,999 NFTs, and their mint price is 0.03 Arbitrum ETH. I don't know how you want to say it. A ETH. But what I will say is that's a more reasonable price, number one. And also I think, and also what they're doing is their mint process is going to last 3 days. So they're going to have a 24-hour whitelist mint and then 2 days of public mint. And at the end of the 3-day minting period, all unminted supply of flip NFTs will be burned. And from that point on, the only way to acquire a flip NFT will be through Trove Marketplace. big deal there, guys. That changes things.
Yeah, it does change things a little bit in terms of scarcity of supply and I guess pumping up the value of things. I do feel like though, I mean, again, it depends on how many people mint it out and how many people end up buying the project in the first place. But at the same time, starting off from a almost 10K collection, in my opinion, I just feel like it is a little bit too high. Not a little, quite high for just, I guess, and if getting to that part where the generative art pieces are is the main goal, and if that's again what they want it to end up becoming, I feel like that is just a little too high for something in that sort of concept. But again, it depends on how many people end up making the project in the first place.
I agree. Well, I'll tell you this much. They have about, I want to say somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 4,000 people in their Discord. And that's just kind of doing a cursory glance because they don't report the actual number. But I bet if I send an invite, hold on, I got this. See, Discord should just provide this information. But if I post this here, it should tell me how many people are in there. Oh, it doesn't say it. Does it say how many people?
It says 15,000 in total.
Oh, 15,000 in total.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I can't see that information. See, this is why I want Discord to like provide that type of information. So they have 15,000 people in their Discord, and on their Twitter, they have also 15,000 on their Twitter and in their Discord? Wow. So, I mean, obviously there's definitely some overlap there, but, you know, from what I can tell, that's a good sign for them getting their project minted out. Now, I'm still curious to see how the game plays out once everything's minted and things are burned and you can start trading things, because they updated their medium. They released a second page. In the beginning, collectors will pay 0.03 ETH to acquire one flip NFT. However, these NFTs will have some future utility, including free NFT airdrops from the sequel collection to reward the holders. Here's what we have in mind in more detail. NFTs from sequel collection, called the abstracts, will be airdropped to flip NFT holders who hold for certain uninterrupted periods of time, and exclusive access to mint the sequel PFP collection. So there's going to be a limit of 2 mints per wallet, and then they will not be revealed until after the entire 3-day minting process. And if you hold your flip for 50 days, you earn 1 abstract art NFT, a common in parentheses. And if you hold your flip NFT for 100 days, you earn 1 abstract art NFT airdrop, in parentheses, a super rare. Now, I don't know what this means for people who buy on the secondary market. I feel like this is uninterrupted, or it's after the mint process, 50 days after the mint process, or 100 days after the mint process, then I think that you're completely excluding the secondary market altogether. So why would anybody want to flip these anyways? Why would there even be a secondary market? Am I wrong?
And I think it's for 2 reasons. It's 1, to kind of flip the free mint idea on its head, and 2, just drive up value for the small percentage of people who mint it and do want to sell, right? It just artificially drives supply down for that period of time. And I really think that this project, that its success will be derived obviously from the community, but also just from how the art looks. It's a purely art-driven project. It'll be really interesting to see. This is something that I personally will be minting. I have whitelist. I'm very excited for it.
Oh, good for you. I do not have the whitelist, but I'm going to try and mint during the public minting phase if there's an availability there. But it seems like this to me, out of the 3 that we're talking about right now, is the one that I'm most interested in as well. What about you, Alan?
Yeah, so I do think I have whitelist for the project, so I do have to double check on that. And if I do, then of course I'd be minting it. But again, the mint price isn't that much anyway, so I might as well just go for it, because why not? And it's definitely just good to experience myself with new projects. But in terms of if I'm wholeheartedly bullish on the project, I'd say I definitely feel like I'd need a lot more of an explanation first before I were to say that, and also figure out what they're going to be doing with the art pieces later on, and just the timeline and just how the whole configuration of that is going to work as well, because I am genuinely confused and curious on how that's going to all play out. But again, the concept seems cool. It seems interesting. It seems very innovative. And honestly, I haven't seen a project like this before, the way they're trying to do it. So that's also another reason why I'm still kind of confused on how it's going to work out. But I most probably will end up minting it in the end anyways.
Sounds good. All right, so the last project is the one we know the least about. I don't even think there's much that we know about it. It's called Smolizards. So they're riding the small train, obviously. I'm in the Discord. There's a lot of talk about lizard facts. There's a couple sneak peeks. It looks like very, very, I don't want to say abstract because that's not the right word, but I'm going to be honest, the art doesn't really do it for me. It's not really kind of my thing. It looks like a PFP project, if you ask me. But, I don't know. Have you guys seen the art here?
I have, and I agree the art isn't doing it for me. But I think that this project is just like all in all good vibes. Its Twitter is like largely memes, and they're not taking themselves too seriously. The videos that they've put out on their Twitter have been like just not informative at all, and that's obviously not something that they choose. Like that's not something that they're choosing to value, and that's fine. They also, as we were discussing before we hopped on the pod today, they have the largest Twitter following by 2x. They have 36,000 or 35,000 followers. So they're obviously doing something right.
Right, and they have about 24,000 members in their Discord too. So I think that they definitely have a community. It's ironic, the projects that want the community don't have the community, and the projects it's like, who the hell cares? They have the community. So that might tell you something. And maybe memes are the way to go in this space. I hope that's not true though. But their mint date is also the 15th of June. We mentioned that. I believe this is a free mint. So kudos on them for not trying to turn it into a fundraise. And I'm curious to see how this one plays out, but it's very likely going to mint out for sure. I don't think I'll doubt that.
Yeah, there are 6969 NFTs to be minted. So obviously
of course there are.
Yeah, I mean, come on. The team is not taking themselves too seriously in so much as leaning into the memes and leaning into this internet culture. So I do have an appreciation for that. It's refreshing to see from time to time, especially when done well. So
yeah. I mean, Alan, what do you think?
I mean, it is just again, small brain derivative, and we talked about this in the earlier podcast as well, and how derivatives works and stuff like that, and just in terms of how that correlates to small brains, of whether that's a good idea or not. And I kind of agree with Dion on here. It's kind of just one of those newer, one of the first projects on Trove that are going to be releasing. And you're right, just kind of laid back, chill out, just a fun mint. It's free. Why not? Just enjoy it while it is. And, for the fun and memes and games, let's see how it turns out. And no offense to anyone from Small Lizards if that's not the whole case that they were trying to do. But again, it seems like it's just going to be something that's really laid back and chill, and just kind of enjoy it as it goes. And I don't see there's anything really wrong with that, because in the end, it is a free mint. So I feel like if there was something that was paid towards it, then that definitely would, cause more serious matters, and to really be providing, what are you guys offering in terms of a project, and how is this going to be a good decision to end up buying into. But it's free, 6969 collection, seems fun and all jokes, so why not?
Let's do it for the vibes, right?
Yeah, definitely. In the end, Small Brains is fun, and the whole concept of it's supposed to be fun and stuff like that. So I guess it's filling in of the motto of trying to keep along in the lines of that. So I guess they're doing nothing wrong with that.
Certainly not. Well, I mean, I think that it will be really interesting to see what happens with the Trove launch. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast on the day we release it, Trove is just 2 days away. I'm looking forward to it. I think you guys are as well. I think it's going to be really good for the ecosystem also. And yeah, I mean, these are three, it looks like, popular projects. So I'm excited to see what happens. A couple of notes before we go, guys. Our next episode after this one is going to feature Tome Finance, which is a Ohm derivative style project in the vein of Tomb Tomb.finance, which is on Phantom. I believe that Tomb.finance builders are building Tome or working with the Tome team. So they're definitely connected to that. And their goal, get this, is to create an algorithmic stablecoin pegged to Magic. They're also going to have an NFT project. They're very ambitious. I've seen their deck. They want to have a built-in convex derivative as well as a curve style derivative. So I'm really interested to hear what those guys have to say. I'm really excited about this episode. I think you all listeners out there should be as well. It's going to be a can't miss one, I think, for sure. I know we're all a little concerned about the algorithmic stablecoin piece after everything that's happened with Luna. But, what did Luna have going for it?
Wide adoption.
Well, not really. Luna...
Nothing.
Yeah, Luna was just... Luna and Terra were just trying to create the stablecoin out of nothing and promising 20% interest. No one here is promising any interest. They want it to be an algorithmic stablecoin, and the basis for that, if you read the Tomb.finance white paper, is that it creates more liquidity so you can hold Magic but still trade in this Tome token across liquidity pools and stuff like that. So again, really unique project, I think, for the Magic ecosystem, and I think we're going to have a good time with those guys. Any final thoughts before we sign off for today?
Let's just say that, again, I've been telling you guys even off episodes that I kind of feel like I'm getting warmed up, kind of primed, kind of getting marinated, I like to say. And things are kind of starting to pick themselves back up, which I'm really happy to see. And I just feel like, again, we always end up saying this, but as much as I guess a lot of this ecosystem has kind of just let Treasure and the entire development teams that are working alongside of it, just kind of let them do the thing, let them build, give them a break, not really push anything towards them, give them a rest, and let them just do the things that they said they were going to do. And, I guess we're starting to get closer to the times that we're going to finally see what they've been working on. And I think I'm pretty excited, and I've been marinated, and I'm ready to be cooked, to be honest. I'm ready to see how this is going to fold out.
What an analogy. I love the analogy, Alan. Yeah, I love the analogy.
I've been marinated for a while, so I'm ready to see how it's going to taste, to be honest. I'm excited. So let's just hope things keep going well, and big ambitions for Small Brains, to be honest. They've been, again, releasing the compasses and stuff like that, seeing how stuff is going on as well. For the listeners, I definitely would think that's a really, really good idea to get a read on those, because they are releasing good information on that stuff as well. And also just honestly, get ready. That's all I'd like to say. Get ready, because I feel like this is going to be, we're in for a ride. We're in for a pretty big ride, and I feel like it's coming soon.
An excellent sign off, Alan. Thank you. And that concludes another episode of Magic Hour, friends. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to our YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you can listen to your podcasts. You can also follow us on Twitter at Magic Hour Pod. All the links are found on our link tree, which is in the show notes. From all of us, we appreciate your support for Bridgeworld.